If you go and buy a coffee somewhere, you don't want that person to immediately see the balance on your crypto wallet.
Think about it when you go to a club, you show your ID. The only piece of information that the bouncer needs to know is your age. They don't need to see home address, etc., etc. How could you potentially verify the authenticity of videos, photographs, speeches? ZK. I know something, you know something, I can prove to you that I know the same thing without having to reveal that thing. Midnight is a ZK-focused layer 1 blockchain, the first partner chain coming out of Cardano. Day one, you've already got as much security on Midnight as you have on Cardano. If you go and claim your Glacier drop, you're going to be able to get your Night token exactly the same way as every single other person on the planet. And if you were to ask me what's going to be the narrative of 2026, I would not be surprised if it is
Hey, Sohail here. Thanks for tuning in. Real quick before we begin, if you enjoyed this episode, if you learned something, please consider to follow or subscribe or share this episode. That helps us out a lot. It helps us to reach more people and to spread quality education across the space about crypto and Web3. Also, if you're part of a crypto project or represent one and you would like to come on the show or do sponsoring, please get in touch with us. And lastly, everything we talk about today is for educational purposes and no financial advice. Enjoy the show. All right, welcome to another Teach Me DeFi podcast. And today is a big day. Today is a huge day. We got the Director of Growth and Ecosystem Development of Midnight on the show. More importantly, a good friend of mine, Nik Kassis. How are you, man?
very good. Thanks, Sahel. Very good. Nice to be here. Looking forward to it.
Awesome. Yeah, I'm excited, man. How are you? How's life?
It's been busy. You know, got with Midnight quite a lot of stuff on. We're heading into Glacier Drop very, very soon. Keep an ear out for news on that. Potentially at Rare Evo next week. I don't want to age this podcast that badly, but that's when you should be listening out to get more details on the Glacier Drop and the Midnight token Night airdrop itself, which Charles has said is going to be going to between 37 and 40 million wallets across 8 different blockchains: Cardano, Solana, Bitcoin, Avalanche, Ripple, Brave, Binance Smart Chain, and I always forget one.
We put like an AI voice, a female one that adds it to your sentence.
The last chain was Ethereum.
So yeah, I know the Glacier Airdrop obviously is a big thing. Funnily, actually, a good friend of mine, Carol, wrote me yesterday with a link to an article. As you know, there's all these like crypto articles which are like farming clicks or scams. But basically, he sent me this one, and he was like, "Scam?" ? And I was like, I don't think so. Midnight is doing a big airdrop. I hadn't read the article. I just saw the headline and said Midnight and airdrop, and I said, well, they are doing an airdrop, which is supposed to be quite big. I just didn't know it was that soon. So it's coming up. I mean, by the time this is out, it might be out.
Fingers crossed. Never say never. I mean, yeah, let me give you a quick debrief on what Midnight is from the 30-second elevator pitch. I mean, even as my top says, ZK. So Midnight is a ZK focused layer 1 blockchain. It's going to be the first partner chain coming out of Cardano. So Charles and a ton of cryptography engineers have been working on what we now know as the Midnight blockchain, probably for about 5 or 6 years specifically. Originated with a couple of research papers, one of which was Minotaur, co-authored by one of the founders of Eigenlayer and a whole load of other input-output chaps. One of our core developers, a chap called Thomas Kerber, who has been integral to Snarks and the development of ZK Snarks in general. And we're infusing a whole ton of different tech. The smart contract language is based on TypeScript. It's called Compact. We've got some really good AI tooling if you are beginner, mid, or advanced engineer, you want to get stuck in. And Ledger is based on customized substrate ledger. So customized for ZK optimized performance. and our token is going to be Knight. And like we said, it's going to be airdropped to holders of lots of different crypto. There's no VCs, there's no PE, there's no pre-sales.
Right.
So,
Right.
I'm sure you've covered that in your Teach Me DeFi lessons of, when's the right entry point. And, the right entry point is usually as the token launches. So if you go and claim your Glacier drop, you're going to be able to get your Knight token exactly the same way as every single other person on the planet that is eligible for it. And that's Charles's commitment to equality.
That's awesome. So there's a few things you mentioned which are interesting already to get into. I mean, we can take it one by one. One is the whole partner chains thing, right? I guess this fits into overall Cardano more, right? So you guys will be the first partner chain that launches on Cardano. As I understand, partner chains leverage also like Polkadot Tech, which is Substrate, or Polkadot SDK, right? What has the journey been like, and what does that really mean for the Cardano ecosystem, I guess?
Yeah, I mean, look, it's very important to clarify that it launches from Cardano, not on Cardano, because look, one of the big misconceptions is Midnight is a layer 2 on top of Cardano. And being a partner chain means that you have observability to Cardano and the Cardano blockchain itself, but you're not based or specifically settling on the Cardano blockchain. However, and this is something that, as director of growth at Midnight has resonated with lots and lots of, builders and enterprises and Web3, Web2, etc. When we launch Midnight, we're going to have the shared validator set with, or stake pool operators, as they're called in Cardano. And we're going to have that shared security with Cardano. So, day one, you've already got as much security on Midnight as you have on, the top 10 blockchain that is Cardano. And that means a lot to people that are looking at the tech. When you go and you speak with, potential partners like a Microsoft or, one of the banks, etc. And if you're going in and you're saying, well, we're going to have a validator set and it's going to be secured with 50, 150 million, there's not as much confidence as if you've got secured by, 20 billion plus, etc. So that's the benefit of being able to launch as a partner chain from Cardano, and there are going to be a few more coming in the not too distant future as well.
Oh, really? I didn't know the plans around that.
Yeah, the product team is really trying to delve into, how we can maximize and really optimize what a blockchain should be for specific use cases. And this is something that I think the entire market has learned from, Hyperliquid, for example. It's optimized to do exactly what it says on the tin, and be the best trading perp platform that you can possibly be. And so the partner chain thesis has obviously been getting built even before Hyperliquid came along, and really having that ability to try and optimize that chain for that specific set of tasks, etc., means that you can suddenly, hopefully, change the game. Overnight after a launch, you can have a brand new participant with all the tools, everything that you need out of the box, ready to go, and have that killer use case, set up. And in Midnight's case, it's privacy. Privacy as a layer, and yeah, lots of people are doing lots of interesting stuff with that.
Yeah, sounds exciting.
Like UDA.
Yes, good point. So yeah, for the viewers, I think I mentioned this before, that I work for a Nasdaq listed AI company as head of Web3, and we're actually partnered with Midnight. We received a grant from you guys, and we're building on top of you. And it's exciting because we're doing some decentralized AI stuff, having privacy preserving inference, and leveraging zero knowledge proofs with your tech to make sure that the inference is in fact done on hardware which is genuine. So, for example, is genuine hardware from NVIDIA and Intel, and it's a secure, like the inference is done on a secure element, so it's shielded from the person who's operating the hardware. So they don't know what is being computed inside there. So anyone that is using this AI model that's running on that piece of hardware can be certain, has cryptographic guarantees that this is being done in a privacy preserving manner, right? So it's just an exciting use case which we're having fun with you guys, and I think ZK is the perfect fit there because you can basically run. I mean, this is my understanding, right? I'm no ZK expert, but you can basically run logic, run code in these ZK circuits, and have a guarantee that it was conducted correctly with a proof that comes out in the end. And I assume this is like big, quite central part of what you guys are doing, right? Would be interesting to kind of hear more about how you're approaching privacy and ZK here and what it enables.
Definitely. I mean, look, a lot of the conversations that we've been having, especially in the last 3-4 months versus, say, 10, 11 months ago, a lot of AI projects are interested, whether they be other AI L1s, Zero G is a good example of someone similar that has lots and lots of stuff going on with AI. And, you can use that Midnight toolkit of using a privacy layer or implementing a privacy layer without having to rewrite your entire kind of code base or application, etc. And that's why it's been fantastic, to hear, people come up with their own use cases, like exactly the same as like you guys did of you saw the tech, it's interesting, we can apply it to something. Having that privacy element means that there's not a specific vertical. TradFi. What does privacy mean in like the terms of TradFi and bringing that on chain? I have a TradFi background. When I was working at a bank, every single other bank couldn't see our wallets or bank balances. And so how do we make sure that if we're going to really, bring this whole world on chain, we don't lose actually what are some of the valuable elements of that world, So obviously privacy at the cost of centralization is a very, very important aspect to bring through into Web3. And so, some of the challenges that you've got with that have been solved with ZK, FHE, MPC, etc., and the innovation has been fantastic, to watch as even a generalist in Web3.
Yeah, I think it isn't very like necessarily very quick and easy to wrap your head around some of the tech, but when you do, it's kind of magical, especially with ZK. I think basically you have like you can have private inputs, right, and then public outputs. So you can basically prove, I think, also knowledge of a private input without having to reveal that input.
Exactly, that's it. I know something, you know something, I can prove to you that I know the same thing without having to reveal that thing.
Yeah. And this is obviously valuable. I mean, like you said, like some of the things in current crypto is like there's some things you don't want to make public. Maybe it could be also your balance. I don't know how balance works on Midnight. Like if you go and buy a coffee somewhere, you don't want that person to immediately see the balance on your crypto wallet.
Or they don't want to see where you're out the night before, or,
Yeah,
why were you clubbing until 4 a.m.? I might judge you for that, even though I'm
yeah,
just selling you coffee. Or, think about it when you go to a club and you show your ID. The only piece of information that the bouncer needs to know is your age, and that picture is you. They don't need to see home address, all the others, like all etc. etc. So look, there's solid use cases. We're working with a whole load of identity providers, digital identity, etc. KYC, AML, and from an institutional and retail focus, and they're just building on top. Testnet is up and running. I mean, look, from the AI perspective, one of the things that I think is going to be really interesting in the next 6-12 months, digital identity for your AI agent is something that I can definitely feel, like where you've got the movie like Wall-E, it's like the first robotic AI agent that has a personality. He's got an identity, etc. And I see that being a really, really strong use case. Um, and we've been building everything for the human interaction. The UI UX has always been focused on some me or you or whoever it is interacting with something, and there's been this shift now to how does an AI interact with your Amazon account or your YouTube account or your Netflix, etc. And then your shop is shopping for you. So digital identity in the AI and robotic space, I think, is going to be real. Fingers crossed. Quote me on it. Maybe in 6-12 months, we could be looking at a lot of stuff happening in that space.
Yeah, this is a good point. It reminds me of like kind of if we get our information more and more from LLMs, from AI, then also discovering that information on the internet should be optimized for AI. So like I think Karpathy made this point where he said like code bases on GitHub. Like everyone should also just put one file on there with the whole code base in that file, so it's easy for the LLM to query and find it.
Yeah, we're gonna hit that inflection point where UI UX is not primed for human interaction. It just becomes now only primed for your AI buddy to get shopping or get stuck in and do whatever they want. And the interaction with the blockchain there is quite interesting because you have the ledger, you have that audit trail, you have the ability to transact, which if you didn't, then you would be constrained by the Web2 TradFi parameters. Versus, think about how far we've come since Satoshi, whoever it may be, and how we've allowed specifically AI to actually transact with real money. The stablecoin explosion that we've had in the last few years. It's just really blockchain's really helped advance. AI is being able to pay for something which would have been missing if we didn't have maybe the blockchain innovation from 2009.
Yeah, agreed. Also, like the permissionlessness, right? It makes sense for agents and the real-time settlement, right? Would be weird to have an agent on standby while you're doing a wire from from here to Greece or something.
That's it. That's it. Yeah.
So, what about Charles's involvement, by the way? Like, what's the structure here? I know he's very vocal about Midnight, for example, as well. I've seen on I think it was a token. I saw him on stage talk about Midnight. He did a nice shout out to Oda AI, which was also nice for us. What's his involvement? I'm curious.
Yeah, I mean, Charles is very involved. He's brilliant individual. Very very hands on with interactions with product and engineering and executive leadership, and when you're in person with him, I think you've met him. He's very very friendly and entertaining and like wants to meet everybody and speak to everyone and get as many people's input etc. as possible because that's how he is. That's just the type of guy he is. It's not fake. He's not doing it because he needs to. He genuinely wants to, and I found him to be a really really pleasant, down to earth, and genuinely genius level intellect there. So he's involved, man. That's all I can say. He's there, helping and asking the right questions and pushing us along and challenging us to innovate and adding in his own innovations as well. So he's definitely been involved. It's been a real pleasure to have him and be able to watch him and learn from him during this whole experience.
That's great. I mean, it is kind of a milestone for Cardano as well, like you said, right? Like it would be a first partner chain. It's a big moment, I guess. I've also seen some talk about things like buying BTC, I think, in the Cardano treasury.
Yeah, Bitcoin DeFi. I mean, so when we first met, ironically, a couple of years ago, whenever it was, I was working at another layer one, which was a proof of work blockchain, and so I delved quite a bit. I think we talked about it. even when first day that we met, of how we'd both kind of delved into that Bitcoin layer 2 or Bitcoin DeFi parameters. And what Cardano as a UTXO chain, as well, was meant to be set up for, was to unlock that Bitcoin liquidity and use cases. And I feel like there's probably a couple of different segments to each market, as you have with any market. You're going to have some people that just want to sit on their Bitcoin and let it appreciate over time, etc., as it's shown to do since inception. You're going to have some people that are probably going to sit on it and want to maybe kind of play around and see if they can generate yield from it. And then you're going to have people that are probably sitting there waiting to be able to buy their bread with it. And when's it going to be in the real economy? And that's not too far away. You can pay your taxes in Bitcoin. You can borrow against Bitcoin. You've got yield in it. And so Cardano's definitely, as an ecosystem, looking to really unlock that powerful asset and make it so that people have the choice of being able to use it as you do with other financial assets and instruments. I know some of the product guys very, very well that are working on it, extremely smart people. And looking forward to seeing how that goes.
Cardano has a significant treasury. I think I looked at it today. I think it was upwards of $1 billion.
I think it's above $1 billion. I mean, it's been, and I think this is just based off of one of the things I saw Charles talking about. I think it is based on ADA. So it's a single asset treasury, and I believe the thing that he's been talking about is obviously generating additional assets as you've got companies doing these days. You've got these digital asset treasuries, like Strategy, and a couple of the other ones which are a bit smaller than Strategy, but still in the same line. And it just makes sense. Diversification, again, going back to my TradFi days. You don't only hold one asset. You look to diversify, and obviously you take a view on which assets you want to diversify into. But you want to make sure that like anyone would do, I guess, and this isn't financial advice, but you want to make sure you've got property, you've got equities, fixed income, crypto, etc., etc. And if you have the ability to diversify across different asset classes, I think anyone or any book will tell you, diversify. So doing that within a different asset structure within crypto obviously makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, there's, like you said, there's a lot of companies now accumulating on their balance sheet different crypto tokens. I actually talked yesterday I mentioned this off air to you, to the founder of Safello, which is the largest crypto exchange in the Nordics in Europe, and they're accumulating. Actually, did you know that they're accumulating Tau, like Bittensor's token?
Amazing. Welcome to the club. Like, me too. If I can, Bytens is a really, really, I mean, it's been an impressive project. I was at the Super AI conference in Singapore a couple of weeks ago, maybe a month and a half, 2 months ago. Went to some of the Bytensor events, especially. They had a big booth with lots of different subnets there. Some really, really impressive projects coming out of that, and not just coming out of that, but generating revenue. If you were to ask me, what's going to be maybe the narrative of 2026, I would not be surprised if it is revenue generation.
Yeah. I mean, you mean in general, in terms of revenue accruing back to the protocol?
Exactly. I'm seeing a lot of the crypto Twitter kind of analytics actually becoming a bit more focused on revenue generation, revenue at the application level, at the actual ledger level, etc. So,
Yeah.
I mean, and Bytensor's definitely been plugging away and filling a lot of gaps for customers that are using various subnets on Bytensor.
I guess it makes sense, like in the life cycle of crypto now, to start looking at like what money is actually being generated from this protocol, like instead of just looking at like vanity metrics or hype, what's next, the supply side, how fast the supply side is going, to look at, okay, how many people are using this, how many fees are being generated, like how does that accrue back to different like participants in the ecosystem and so on.
Exactly. I was working in the Cosmos ecosystem, pre kind of lunar implosion, and there was a lot of, like I had some UST, I had some lunar, and 20% seemed fantastic at the time as a kind of like, yield generation, etc. Um, and not to say that there's anything wrong with the way that they did it, but when you look at the yield generation now that you're seeing on various stable coins, it does seem like they're trying to back that with maybe carry trades or various other aspects, rather than it just being inflationary yield, shall we say. It does feel like there's a lot more non-inflationary yield these days in a lot of the markets. Again, not financial advice.
Yeah. So you tell me no more 5,000 million% APYs.
OHM, right? And Rome and a couple of those projects.
Yeah, yes. Those were the times.
Yeah, it's I've always said, and I've had it said to me, if you don't have a sub story in crypto, you haven't been in the game long enough. So yeah, the days of 90,000% yields are probably over. But look, I came on this show because I thought you were going to be teaching me about DeFi.
Well, that was wrong. The guests teach me. You're here to teach me about ZK, privacy, all that. Speaking of, look, you are focused obviously on like growth and developing the ecosystem. So this is like an exciting point in Midnight's story, I guess, right? So, like, what are you especially excited about at the moment? Like different projects, different use cases, like the mainnet going live, this airdrop. What is it that you're kind of like excited about?
Yeah, I mean, look, the way that myself and my team kind of focus on it, we have to look beyond the airdrop. Like obviously the airdrop is fantastic, and it means that we want to get as many different folks involved within our ecosystem as possible. But we really have to look past that in terms of what are, like you said, the use cases, and what's going to be driving transaction volume, and what's going to be the killer use case, etc. AI has obviously been a big push and a part of that. The RWA tokenization and having that ability to privately transact, privately hold assets, and privately issue assets, but in a regulatory compliant methodology, and allowing a use of selective disclosure, and this programmable privacy. Those are definitely key points and parts of Midnight that we're seeing our partners, genuinely excited about. I get excited, me, I get excited about the wrong things, in Web3. I want a 90,000% yield, every single day of the week. But it's more to do with, even think about oracles. We've recently partnered with Dia, one of my favorite kind of oracle providers, and something there is, maybe having private verification or private sourcing of information, and being able to verify without having to reveal, etc. And suddenly you're able to really onboard completely different data sources that you might not have been able to onboard before. There's loads of stuff. One of the most interesting, and this is, pipe dream use cases, something that I do feel would be super useful for existing businesses that have, hundreds of millions of users. So, obviously X has its authentication methodology. TikTok is going to be bringing in another kind of authentication methodology similar to Twitter's. And then you have, Instagram, and I'm sure you've got a whole load of other applications that I'm not on that are out there. And how could you potentially verify the authenticity of videos, photographs, speeches, without necessarily having to reveal absolutely everything about it. Like when I'm on social feeds or even when I'm looking at news sites, etc. I don't know about you, but I don't know what's true and what's fake anymore. And how can we as a complete society be able to validate or authenticate social media or what's blurred now with news stories anyway? And ZK, is a really good solid use case of being able to timestamp, confirm, ownership confirm, IP confirm. And you've got a lot of AI generated content these days as well. And some of the big gripes that I have for my friends that are in this space and that are there churning out AI content day after day is it's really hard to get paid on it. And then it's really hard to even verify that you were the one that even created it, because this is AI generate. There's no physical connection that you actually have to this digital piece of art or advertising or content or whatever it might be. And I'm really trying to push and innovate blockchain onto that next level of solving a real problem. Yeah, look, one other thing that really is exciting is concept that Charles has come up with, which is around hybrid decentralized applications. And as I mentioned, there's going to be a lot of the airdrop going to holders of other blockchain ecosystems. And I think part of the kind of thinking around that was to entice and allow equality to happen between developers, but also incentivize cross development and co-development. And so this thing called hybrid applications is really about having an application and not just going after something for maybe something like a vampire attack, as I'm sure is quite common in Web3, but really being able to build something and add value and generate value together in other ecosystems for Midnight, using Midnight tech, etc., and also using the tech of what's been produced in other ecosystems. So hybrid dApps definitely one to watch out for, and fingers crossed should see some real traction with that in 2026.
Okay, so let's say like could be let's say a decentralized application somewhere else on a different chain, but then still leveraging some ZK and primitives from Midnight.
Exactly. Like imagine you have 20 different stable coins. Each stable coin is a USD sat somewhere, and being able to do you want to generate 20 different liquidity pools to cross match each stable coin against another stable coin, or can you suddenly maybe generate cross liquidity pools with ZK proofs that verify the holding of a different stable coin and allows you to execute a transaction with whatever stable coin you have available in front of you without having to then reroute, unwrap, bridge, etc., etc., etc.
I get that. So like do basically do proofs of different things, and then this proof on Midnight is put on chain, and then you can reference that
Exactly.
broadly said, right?
That's it. Yeah, that's it. And then I think if you can apply that, you can try and apply that to lots of different use cases. And so I think the way that they've tried to set up Midnight has been to make that easy to do, and you don't have to suddenly reinvent the wheel with a ZK implementation. You can take a piece of tech it's already built, slap that in, you're off to the races.
Yeah, I think what you said is probably the notion of I think I've heard Charles say that before, which is like there's a very PvP game in crypto, right? Like everyone's sort of all chains are sort of more competing against each other over maybe a limited pool of users or whatever, or liquidity and things like that, and to kind of find a way to change this game to like growing the pie together, benefiting from each other, which I think was initially anyway the idea of for example smart contracts, right? Like they can communicate to each other and leverage the strengths of each other, and you don't have to reinvent the same thing again. But I think especially across chains this has not worked out as well.
Yeah, I mean, I first got tapped on the shoulder and told about Bitcoin in like 2013, you know, um, and really seeing the evolution of that 2016, 2017, Ethereum and EOS and Zilliqa, Hollow,
Oh my God, Zilliqa, you're right.
yeah, and you know, there's a whole load of blockchains. Don't get me wrong, I've got a lot of respect for these. These were innovators, you know. Back then, it was literally, oh, blockchain, you must be a drug dealer, you know, is like is kind of like the finger pointing that happened versus what is now of blockchain. Oh, you know, do you work for a top tier bank? You know, is kind of the way in the impression that most people get. I mean, I remember going to some meetups where it was 25, 30 of us sitting in a pub where, you know, your shoes stuck to the carpet because it was, you know,
The best pubs are like that.
you know, versus now you go to, you know, Marina Bay Sands in Singapore and everyone is, you know, shilling a version of a blockchain. So yeah, look, it's been such fantastic progress. I really do want to make sure that we don't lose sight of where this all started and where this came from and what was the original driver, which was giving people the power. You know, Web3 is definitely for the people, and we have to make sure that we don't lose track of that. And I say that ironically, and maybe Web3 is for the people and brackets their AI agent. You know,
Yeah,
um,
yeah.
but it's been really exciting to see the development of so many DeFi protocols and SocialFi, you know, AI, etc. Like right now, which one's your favorite? Have you got any favorite protocols? Anything new that's come out?
Um, I think I would actually say that I'm most intrigued right now about Bittensor. Um, last few days I've been looking into it, also just because of Oda AI and us working on decentralized AI. Uh, and I think I kind of like the game they've created in a way, right? It kind of reminds me in some ways of Bitcoin, sort of like the competition of miners to solve a problem. And on BitTensor, it seems to be sort of these so-called miners competing to solve an AI related problem better than the other ones. And they like compete, the way I understand it, for like this limited pool of rewards, which is the tau emissions, right? The emissions of the protocol's token. Uh, and I think the alignment of these incentives is quite clever in a way where you create this competition for the best quality output of an AI model, in a way. So I think it seems to be still like largely. I haven't looked into it that closely, but it seems to be like more still like researchy, like in terms of the use cases there, versus like production level super useful AI models which are being used wide and far by companies or something like that, right? Uh, but I think the idea, or this game, this creates for like this decentralized competition between different people, um, like bringing in the mind share in a way for this, could bring about maybe something really interesting. Maybe this will happen soon, and suddenly it's like a big catalyst or something. But I don't know. I find that a bit interesting. And to be fair, I haven't like looked that much at a lot of the stuff that's launching. I don't know. What is it for you?
Yeah, I mean, there's been a couple of interesting pieces coming out, you know, around that social fi, you know, DeFi AI. Um, I mean, it's not necessarily new, but it's definitely worth mentioning. You know, something called Project Catalyst. Buddy of mine, Chris, is the GM over there, but it's the decentralized grants program really for Cardano
Ah,
itself.
yes. I thought I had heard that name.
And it's done such a fantastic job of allowing developers to innovate, come up with ideas, um, have community members, not just, one-click vote on something, but really get involved in the growth of a project, driving the solution that that the projects are actually trying to come up with. And I feel like it's definitely evolving into more of what's going to be some form of maybe corporate governance, or maybe corporate investment planning, etc. And so just having seen the evolution of that from day one to where it's at now, onto its 14th fund, has been really good to watch. A lot of the kind of like, perps, Hyperliquid has been fantastic. Pump.fun, don't get me wrong, each to their own. And
How much did they raise? They raised a crazy amount, I saw, I think.
they did raise quite a fair bit, but even then, that's an innovation on itself as well, because it draws people into crypto or Web3 as an ecosystem, because they can see you can raise 500 million the same way that if you had a fintech or an ad tech, you might be able to raise 500 million, etc. But and like maybe the evolution of memes as well into, what comes next. So I think 2025, we've got a lot of gas left in the tank to see some really, really interesting developments. And look, even I don't want to leave it out. Like on the digital identity piece, projects like zk.me, Keyring, they're kind of innovating in their own different ways around that ability to KYC somebody very, very easily. And I think being able to authenticate who you are is going to be an important feature of life over the next 20 to 30 years. Like Worldcoin as well, right?
Apparently, Worldcoin is going quite well as well. I mean, if that random Twitter X post was correct, I mean, I don't verify what I read there in a way, but it sounded like growth is going well. I don't know what you call the metric. It's not active wallets, is it? It's like approved identities. I don't know. Apparently, that's grown.
Something like that. I was a bit scared of it when I first heard of what it was. Go and get your eyeball scanned, and then we know who you are for the rest of your life. But look, it's, they've got ZK in there as well, doing something. So it's interesting. Look, I mean, something that went over a lot of people's heads, and definitely not mine, but was Google Wallet implementing ZK proofs into their, wallet identity piece of software. So, the big boys are doing it, and that's showing how useful it really is. Because if they're doing it, then that must mean they're doing something right.
Yeah, I think one of the things that will be uh, probably an even bigger catalyst for ZK is improving like the performance, right? And it's still computationally intensive. Like for example, if you wanted to run a full large language model in a ZK circuit to kind of um, be able to prove that the correct model was used, because with a ZK proof, that is not really viable yet, right? It's just too much computation, too much time that it costs. But I think it's I mean it's only going one way, right? Like basically down. Then the algorithms are getting more efficient. But by the way, you mentioned SocialFi, I guess. Base is also launching this app. I don't know. Did you see that Base app or something?
Yeah, I mean, if anyone wants to send me an invite to it, I asked someone that I know if they could sort me out with some invites. They're heavily involved in the Farcaster scene, and big in base, and that is something that I've been meaning to get stuck into as well. I mean, are you on Farcaster?
Yes, I made a profile, but I never really used it. I don't know. It's like I'm on X, and it's kind of enough. I don't know how it is for you. If you find a new app, do you easily get converted to it and end up using it? For me, it's kind of
Not easily. I definitely don't get easily converted. I mean, I was lucky enough to kind of stumble across Revolut very, very early on, and had an opportunity to kind of work with a couple of the chaps there. and learn about that. But that was, I've been trying to convert as many people as I can to Revolut, because every single person I know always complains about banking this, banking that, having 8 different bank accounts and then getting ripped off when they're trying to do FX, etc., etc. And so I don't even check to see if it's the best FX rate anymore. It's just such an easy user experience on there, done and dusted. And maybe they're going to have their own blockchain, from some of the rumors and chatter that I'm seeing. And it won't necessarily be a public blockchain, but it will be a private blockchain. But who knows what those guys would do, because they are extremely well versed in the payments methodologies and licenses and everything like that. So that's something that I definitely want to keep an eye on, see how they get on.
Yeah, I think Robinhood launched or is launching something as well. I believe it's based on Arbitrum. I think it's also permissioned or something.
Tokenized equities, yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. And yeah, tokenized equities is an interesting one. It's a tough one, because there's a reason why they've always had, a T+2 or a T+3 settlement period. And when you have it in that centralized world, if something does go wrong, there's obviously lots and lots of recourse to it. And so I can understand the prevalence of banks wanting to do it in a slow, calculated way but when you think about it, what the benefits are of in a perfect world, happy scenario, instantaneous settlement, instantaneous delivery versus payment of equity and cash, and instantaneous confirmation of KYC compliance, credit risk limit has been met, etc. It just makes perfect sense to be able to do as much of this on a chain as possible. Whether that be a public or private or permission chain is obviously up for argument. And that's something that Midnight is definitely looking to focus on, from having that privacy aspect and being able to offer, selective disclosure.
Yeah, I didn't really, my bad, I didn't really follow up on that, I guess. But this is an interesting thing on Midnight, which I'm not sure I can fully put it into words, but I believe you like you said, selective disclosure. You can disclose some things, and you can choose what your application discloses and what it doesn't disclose, right? So I guess for like institutional players, this could, for example, be good because they can programmatically say, like, create an application which is not fully out in the open. Maybe that's not compatible with what they do, but choose what is and what isn't.
Exactly. Look, or think about it. Let's take it from a non-TradFi example. Take it from the perspective of, for example, patient data. So, when everyone has a patient record. Like, I've never seen mine. I don't know what's on mine.
It's
Just
bad,
imagine.
man. It's bad. I'm telling you.
It's
I've seen
yeah.
it. It's not good. It got leaked.
It's I have zero ownership over what is my own patient data. And if I were to change, I changed residency from the UK to Greece, and what happened, like, where did my patient file go? I have no idea. Is it still in somewhere in in the UK, etc.? So you have to be really careful with what selective disclosure specifically means, because it can mean lots of different things to lots of different people. And really, what we're trying to do with it, and we do have a really, really strong product being developed on Midnight that I don't want to ruin the marketing team's
It's okay. It's between us.
plans. So
It's between you and me.
I won't. So I won't disclose it. But they've got, the builder has been working in the healthcare space for 15, 20 years, whatever it is, and they've had this issue of, and identified an issue of, healthcare providers getting hacked, or healthcare providers having classified patient data in an access database, which is anyone can log in on on a PC or whatever it is. And that like I started this with, the patient having really zero ownership over that data. And so imagine if, like magic, you can solve that problem of, I now own my data. I now choose who I share that data with. I could maybe monetize the data, and who I'm monetizing the data with would also obviously be able to make some money. We're suddenly, not making money out of thin air, but we're generating a financially viable product that can be used in a responsible way, which we didn't have before. And that can be unlocked with blockchain privacy, ZK proofs, etc., and digital databases, if you want to call it, or a digital database. Turning patient data into a digital asset is probably the best way to put it, and that is something that at Midnight we're trying to make possible, and zero knowledge is definitely making possible in the longer term.
Excited to watch it happen. So what is actually like what are the next steps you want to highlight, perhaps, and where can people go to kind of stay on top of this? To be honest, by the time this comes out, who knows? Maybe or your airdrop is live, for example. Where is the best place to go for that as well? Because if you're distributing it to so many wallets across so many ecosystems, I mean, if you hold Bitcoin or something, you might qualify for it. So
yeah, I mean, there's only one place to go to and use for that source of information. So if you can share that with your viewers, the security team that we've got at Midnight and Shielded has already been identifying lots and lots of fake stuff, and so information is power. Only use that as your source. Don't click on anything else. Charles is not going to email you a special link.
oh, God damn it. I thought that was legit. Gotta go delete some emails. We'll put that link in the show notes, the one that you just sent me.
And from a kind of like next steps, if you're interested in developing stuff with, TypeScript based smart contract language, you want to get involved in the testnet and the hackathons. We've got one coming up in LATAM. We've got another couple coming up, in Q3, Q4. We've been doing a whole ton of hackathons and had some really exciting builders coming through that way that, from an ecosystem development point, win a hackathon or two, and definitely, we'll see what we can build next. And on Discord, always the place to be. Lots and lots of our team I'm regularly in there. Lots of the engineers are in there if anyone's got any questions. Definitely start at the docs site, and I'll send you the link to that as well so you can stick it in.
Yeah, put that in the show notes as well. Yeah, the docs are actually really good. Was also good for me to wrap my head around the tech when we started working with you guys. So I can recommend that. You've also done some YouTube videos. I think it's like showcases of the hackathons, maybe, where some teams kind of present what they did, and that was also interesting.
Definitely, yeah. I mean, Lauren Lee is head of direct developer relations. DevRel's incredible person, so helpful, always available to speak to anyone in a team, any budding developers that want to get stuck in and maybe have got a use case of their own for ZK. Definitely get in touch with our DevRel's team and be more than happy to help out and help people develop stuff with privacy.
Awesome. It was great to catch up, man. Glad we chatted again. What's your next conference? Like, where will you be?
It's a good one. I'm off to the Google ZK AI Summit in San Francisco, which is 13th and 14th of August. So I will be there for 2 days only.
Is Blue's gonna be there?
Maybe. Actually, I don't think he is. He said maybe. I mean, my next conference, I'm off to see Oasis, which is something to look forward to. But yeah, and then maybe it'll be KBW or Token 2049 or maybe DevConnect Pointer Series. So something, we'll see. It's so difficult to plan anything when you're actually trying to ship and launch a product, and we've got so many really strong partnerships that we're building and developing as well.
Awesome. Well, we'll see each other the latest in Singapore, I think, at Token. So.
That's it.
Awesome. Thank you for coming on the show, man.
No problem. Thank you so much for having me. I hope you found it informative and glad to be here.